Donald Trump is surging in the polls and will likely be a big target at CNN's debate next Wednesday night. But are his rivals fighting a losing battle trying to stop him? Joining me now is Douglas Brinkley, CNN presidential historian, Steve Adubato, political and media analyst and author of You Are the Brand, and Mark McKinnon, former media advisor to President George W. Bush. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you. Steve, long time no see. Douglas, I think I just saw you like last week or so. And Mark gets the award for the best outfit. Digging it.
We got a little event tonight.
It is Friday night. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. I want you to take a look at these headlines. Is Megyn Kelly Donald Trump's kryptonite? That was from a month ago. And then there's this one. Is Ben Carson Trump's kryptonite? That was from last week, before their feud began. So when you have a guy like Donald Trump who thrives on conflict and controversy, how do his opponents neutralize him? Can they neutralize him, Steve?
No. The kryptonite for Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He's his own kryptonite, and I'll make the case. This is a guy who only knows how to play offense. He doesn't know how to play defense, doesn't want to play defense, and here's what I see. I see a crack for the first time, Don. He goes after Carly Fiorina. He said, he can't take it back, Don, look at that face.
And by face, he says he meant persona.
Yeah, right. So here's the reality. He said, look at that face. And all these people who like Donald Trump say he means what he says what he means. But as soon as he was challenged by Chris Cuomo and others, he said, you know, I really wasn't talking about her face. I was talking about her persona. That's garbage. He knows it. He's backtracking. He's playing defense. And now he sounds like every other politician who doesn't want to own what he or she says.
But you think that'll hurt him? You think that's going to hurt him?
Listen, Don, he has a problem as soon as he starts backtracking. He doubled down on John McCain. He doubled down after the Mexican comment. He doubled down after Megyn Kelly. I was wrong. I thought he'd apologize. He's more arrogant than I ever thought.
All right.
He's starting to back down now. That's his kryptonite.
Mark, let's take Dr. Ben Carson, for example. Soft-spoken, some would say humble guy, right? Does not fighting back make him seem like the anti-Trump? Is that a winning strategy for him?
Well, it's certainly not working any other way. The thing is that Trump is kicking the crutches out of everybody leaning on conventional wisdom. I think there's three scenarios. One is the conventional one, which Trump simply fades away and his support diminishes after all these gaffes and what have you. But that's not happening, and I don't think it's going to happen. I disagree even with the recent comments about Fiorina. And the reason is that he's going to get attacked by the super PACs, by Jeb, by Carly, by others, as being an inconsistent conservative for a number of other things. But that's not why people are supporting him. They don't care that he's inconsistent conservative. They may not even agree with him on the issues. They like him because he's throwing a big one-finger salute at Washington, and that's the message that they want to send, and he's the brash guy to do it. Number two is the scenario. So I think he's going to hang in. The scenario is that he actually sustains. He's got the money to do it. And people like a strong leader. We've figured that attribute during the Bush campaigns and other presidential campaigns. That's the number one attribute that people look for is strength, and he's got it. He's got the money to sustain. So I think he goes. He could lose. Carson could win Iowa. He could lose New Hampshire, but he'll gather enough delegates to go to the convention and cause a lot of trouble. And
you
be
think
a big deal at the convention,
and eventually possibly be the nominee. But Douglas, let's go back. Let's go back to the Fiorina comment that Steve mentioned, because my colleague Anderson Cooper spoke with the Rolling Stone reporter who interviewed Trump when he made the Fiorina, look at that face remarks. He said, that we were just talking about. This is how he described Donald Trump. Take a listen.
So I found Donald to be two people. I found him, first of all, to be an extraordinarily shrewd predator, someone who, as I describe in the piece, is a top-of-the-food chain killer. He is a guy with two extraordinary senses. One is something I call clairvoyance, the ability to read a market way before it's formed and get there first. The second is clairaudience, the ability to hear what's in people's hearts and minds. Not only was he able to hear that seething rage, he was able to read it back to them word for word.
I know that you, Douglas, said that Trump reminds you in some ways of Ronald Reagan. So I'm curious, do you find that the description of him, of Trump, that you just heard, do you find that accurate?
I think it's largely accurate in the sense that he's a lot like Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, TR used to get up every day itching for a fight. his day wasn't complete if he couldn't go after somebody, slaughter the enemy. It's funny talking about the top of the food chain, and Theodore Roosevelt was a real Darwinian. I'm number one, and there's a narcissism rolled up into all of that. But I think Donald Trump's not just dealing on the anger of America. The public is saying, look, we spent a lot of money on the war in Iraq, and we got nothing out of it, both Bush and Obama. And where's this country headed? And so he's able to kind of show, I think, by breaking out of the pact, it is like TR. Mark Hanna of the Republican Party during William McKinley said that damn cowboy's now ruining the modern Republican Party. And eventually Theodore Roosevelt smashed the Republican Party by doing the Bull Moose Party. So there are precedents for this kind of alpha male act we're seeing with somebody like Theodore Roosevelt.
Go ahead, Steve.
Don, respectfully, I have no idea what either guest is talking about when they're talking about leadership as it relates to Donald Trump. You talk about Donald Trump wanting to throw bricks at Washington and challenge the Washington establishment. What does that have to do with Donald Trump talking about Carly Fiorina's face, talking about Ben Carson's religion, talking about he's not really that great a doctor? What are you talking about? He's talking about Megyn Kelly, an anchor of another network. He's not talking about policy and those issues. He's attacking people on a personal level.
To your own words, it seems to be working for him. Go ahead, Douglas.
To this point.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is that is what Theodore Roosevelt used to do. He was VP for William McKinley, and he called McKinley a man with a spine like a chocolate eclair. All of Theodore Roosevelt's opponents were weasels. At the end of the day, Theodore Roosevelt would then shake hands with them. And I think you just saw Donald Trump a couple weeks ago beating up on Rick Perry. Rick Perry stepped out today, and now he sends the nice tweet telling Rick Perry, you're a good guy. For Trump, it's entertainment, and it's about staying on top of the polls. And I think the public kind of is maybe more in on the game. They're not interested in the policy aspects of Trump. They're just they're enjoying the sucker punching.
I need to move on because I want to talk about someone who people say is authentic and maybe as animated as Donald Trump, and that is Vice President Joe Biden. His emotional interview, here's part of it on Stephen Colbert last night, where he talks about the moment where he talks about what it takes to run for president.
I don't think any man or woman should run for president unless, number one, they know exactly why they would want to be president, and two, they can look at the folks out there and say, I promise you, you have my whole heart, my whole soul, my energy, and my passion to do this. And I'd be lying if I said that I knew I was there. I'm being completely honest. But nobody has a right, in my view, to seek that office unless they're willing to give it 110% of who they are.
Running or not running, Mark?
Well, he clearly has opened the door and he's thinking about it. And the problem is that once you start thinking about it, it's really hard to close that door. Now, obviously, he's been through a lot of emotional trauma, and so he's trying to square all that. But the deal is that, gosh, once he's been co-pilot for 8 years, looking at the pilot seat, and suddenly it's like it could be his. So it's just awful tough to say no. It's harder to say no than it is to say yes, really.
Steve?
Yeah, I have a sense, Don, that he's in his heart and his gut. I mean, no one knows it for sure, but he looks at Hillary Clinton, he looks at her struggling, he looks at that calculated apology that just isn't playing out right now in the email situation. He says, this is my window, my whole public life. He was a young man in his early 30s, went to the Senate. This is the window, and my gut tells me he's going to make a move, and it is a real problem for Hillary Clinton.
Mr. Brinkley?
I agree with that. I think right now he's leaning towards running, but some days he questions it. He has the opportunity of about 2 weeks here to see how Hillary Clinton handles herself through this email ordeal, and will probably decide at very late September, early October.
All right. Thank you, Douglas Brinkley, Steve Adubato, and Mark McKinnon.